Thank you, Chloe. Wow, this is awesome. Hi there. I want each of you to think about one thing here. Think about what you are grateful for. Think about that. Pause for a moment and think about what you are grateful for. Now, let me guess what you may be thinking. Your family, your friends, a great education, the right to be whomever and whatever you want to be. Let me ask you a question. How many of you thought about being grateful for living in a country where you will have the right to vote? I'm not sure how many of you actually thought that, but let's say some of you did. The right to vote is one of the most fundamental and most coveted rights around the world. The right to vote, the right to have a say in the decisions that are made in your town or your province or your country. The right to make a difference. That's what Craig was talking about, the right to make a difference. Here in Canada, we all have that right the moment we turn 18, all of us. But for many others around the world, they have no decision in the decisions that are made that affect their lives. As a result, they feel powerless. Now, like some of you, I've traveled around the world. I've seen people at their best, and I've seen people at their worst. I've seen incredible joy, and I've seen incredible sorrow. Now, one of the most emotional scenes all of us witness, whether it's in person or on television, is when people in faraway countries who've never had the right are finally given that opportunity to vote. We watch them stand in line. Some are crying, standing for hours, waiting in line to cast their ballot, and they're crying, tears streaming down their cheeks. Why would that be? Because they know that others, in some cases their parents, their grandparents, their sisters and brothers, fought to give them that right. Some of them actually died for that right. For the simple but ever so powerful right to mark a ballot that could impact the way they live. We forget that feeling. We as Canadians forget that feeling. Because voting seems so automatic here in Canada. But only because we forget that people in our country fought for those same rights. Women demonstrated and spoke out against a law, a Canadian law, which didn't allow them to vote. They didn't start winning their case until 1916, when the country was almost 50 years old. Indigenous Canadians who'd fought and died for our country in the great wars of the last century, they didn't get their right until 1960. Approaching the country's 100th birthday. So past generations in our country have fought too, and there were probably tears in the voting lines when they lined up for the first time. We should have their courage, and we have a duty to fulfill what they fought for. So none of us should ever take voting for granted. We should all take the time to understand the issues and study the people who want to make decisions for us. To those of you, and I know there are many of you in here, who are approaching 18, your generation can make a real difference in the way we practice democracy. And here's how. Voting turnout has dropped in the last half century to numbers no one's proud of. That's not good. But for your generation, it's an opportunity to stop the slide and put us back on the right course. People make excuses for not turning out. They say the system doesn't work, that politicians are corrupt, that politicians don't listen to the people. So do something about it. When you get the chance, force change. The difference you make can set a new course for the kind of country you want to live in, the country you'll want your children to grow up in. And parents, you have an opportunity here too. You can ensure you set the example by voting. And you can encourage your kids to understand the responsibility of being a good citizen includes that simple act of marking an X on a ballot. So all of us should make a pledge tonight, make it to yourself that in the next election, if you're old enough, you're going to study the issues, you're going to vote. Each of you will have the power in your hands to influence the decisions that affect your lives. Remember, people in other countries are dying for that power. So never take it for granted. It could be the most important power you ever have. So use it or lose it. Thank you.